Hello. So, how's everybody doing? All two of you. Listen, I am just going to talk through a few things that have been on my mind. And I put them in the description of the video. But I wanted to talk about a few things. Somebody actually just asked me about an update on Britney Phillips' case, and I'm going to address that in a minute. But what does three mean? Oh, hi. But I want to talk about the jurors in the Karen Reed trial versus the juror who's spoken out in the Richard Allen trial. I want to talk about why we're not talking about the assassinations in Minnesota and the uncomfortable topic of right-wing anti-abortion zealots. I want to talk about the updates from the Luigi Mangione's trial. The PR person sent over some new filings, and they have a very, very interesting dashboard that is chock full of data. But I really do want to talk about the way that the jury has been speaking in the Karen Reed trial. And the hope that I think it has given people, myself included. Sure. I mean, abortion may be murder, but you know what? You don't go shoot people over it. I don't care. All comments are welcome. Keep it classy. So, you know, I've got nothing for you. But anyway, so let's talk about the let's talk about Karen Reed. So this is, I find this a very interesting article. I'm going to put Boston 10. Here he is. This is the foreman. So he spoke out this morning. I'm sure everybody knows all about it. And I think that the beautiful thing is that what I'm learning from hearing these folks speak out is that they really got the assignment. They really got the assignment. And the assignment is that, that reasonable doubt is reasonable doubt. And so that doesn't mean, and they got the burden, right? So they got the burden correct. So, can we just not talk about abortion in the chat though? Because that is going to derail me. And I think that it's important to consider it in the context of what motivated the Minnesota shooter. Thank you. But yes, anyway, but let's talk. I want to talk quickly about the foreperson who came out and has said, that the juror was innocent. But his I think it's a real eye opener to people who are anti Karen Reed, which is such a weird thing. This is something that is so strange to me, is that really, I mean, what are the sides here? It just seems like everything is, this, or it's black or white. You go into the courtroom with the presumption of innocence. So, I think that it's just the state of the fucking world, right? That everything's sort of commodified and boils down to games. Anyway, so the foreman finally came out. I was really glad to see that he did, because, we've heard a lot from juror number 11, who, by the way, I loved, that she is just coming for everybody that's coming for her. And I will talk a little bit about what DA Morrissey said and what Hank Brennan said. And I think that's important to understanding, to me, how law operates on the hyper local level and how elections do matter because the elected DA is an elected position, and people who are reticent to discuss politics forget that everything down to our school board, right, is a political system. So I think that I'm trying to, I think some people are coming around to that. I think that there's, that is something that needs to be reinforced, that politics isn't a bad word. And that if more people actively engaged in civil society and our political system, maybe we wouldn't have jurors that don't understand what the hell is going on. But so let's talk about our friendly neighborhood foreman. And everything is so obvious, right? Everything is just so obvious. But let's see. Boop, boop, boop. So let's see what he has to say. I also think too that I'm very nitpicky on the way that journalists cover this and set this up. But we'll get there. Let's see if we can do this. I'm sure. Whatever.
Some more new reaction to the Karen Reed trial. Public perception still mixed. Nearly a week after.
Okay, first of all, I'm gonna stop a lot because I haven't seen this through. So public perception is still mixed. Who gives a shit, sir? Who cares? Court of law.
After she left court, a free woman acquitted of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend.
This morning, the special prosecutor is breaking his silence, and now the jury foreman is about to share.
So the special prosecutor shouldn't have broken his silence. He should have shut his mouth after Morrissey spoke. So my theory is Hank Brennan has now slid into his new role as lead apologist for Morrissey to take the heat off of Morrissey for the upcoming election. I don't think it's going to work, but c'est la vie. He should have kept his mouth shut. And it's incredibly disheartening, the attack that all of these people that believe Karen Reed is guilty and there was some sort of miscarriage of justice. It's disgusting to see them attack the system that is the last stop that we have against our government. And so it pisses me off. Moving on.
What it was like leading the deliberations in his first live interview. We'll speak with him in a moment. But first, a look at the latest on the case.
Okay.
It's been almost a week since Karen Reed's
fate
was sealed.
Defendant not guilty or guilty?
I am disappointed in that acquittal. Special prosecutor Hank Brennan ending his silence, saying.
So another thing too, ending his silence. Here's the thing. Don't encourage him. News, don't encourage him. Okay. We don't need to hear from Hank Brennan ever again. Ever again. We don't. The man is, we'll get to the comparison with the Richard Allen trial, but, when people come, so just this little sidebar is that, oh, you lived in Norfolk County before moving to Ireland, bless your heart. So when comparing what happened with the Karen Reed trial to what happened with Richard Allen, I think that people that are coming in to Richard Allen's trial and the way that shook out from, another, like from the Karen Reed aspect, from seeing the miscarriage or the abuse of power that took place in Norfolk County and the abuse of power in Delphi in that, in the Judge Gold's courtroom, so those two things are the same. There was an egregious abuse of governmental power. And in both cases. So this doesn't have anything to do with guilt or innocence. This has to do with the egregious misuse of government power, the full force and weight of the government as exercised through the prosecutor's office and the state police, etc. It's the same thing. These two things are analogs. So what's different, obviously, is that we got to see, and thank God we got to see the way that trial rolled out in Karen Reed's case, right? We got to watch it. We got to kind of live along with it. But, you know, when people start coming into the Richard Allen trial, what they're going to realize, I think, is that as bad as people thought Judge Cannoni was, we at least got to see it, right? We at least got to see how she was operating. Judge Gold, not so much. And that's a problem. So anyway, Hank.
In a statement, I am disappointed.
Okay, we're going to come back to him because I can't
use her own words to build
right.
it.
Okay,
and convicted her room
right.
and how the jury. We've agreed to keep your name private for confidentiality reasons. So with that, we say good morning. And can you just explain, take us into this jury room and how the jury came to the conclusion it did?
Have you guys seen this?
Collectively together, we looked at all the evidence that we was presented with, and we made our decision off of that. We didn't.
Right.
At first, some had their own personal opinions on what the case should be or whatever, and was trying to go down like a personal feelings and stuff like that. And we had to stick to what evidence we had in front of us. And
right. Correct. That's how that's done. The evidence, right? Right? I mean, that's what you do.
And go with that. So it was more.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Or less just trying to figure out that part. And it took us a couple of days to really get the gears going, but when we did, it was smooth trails after that.
Sir, to that point, the evidence, was there a singular piece of evidence that seemed to move the majority of the jurors in the room, or were there multiple pieces?
It just was. It was the whole case.
Right. The whole case.
All together, all the pieces, testimony, witnesses, and it just a lot together. And people had questions. We used the evidence to answer their questions, and we didn't try to go down these rabbit holes where we're just getting lost in what all these other things that was thrown at us.
And they also didn't have barbecues with the bailiffs, right? Like they did in the Richard Allen case. I mean, people on the interwebs calling for an investigation into the jurors and Karen Reed. Come on over and bring that kind of energy over to Delphi, right? Give me a break.
Court or whatever, and we just had to lock down and figure it out through the evidence.
Sir, I asked one of your other fellow jurors this question. There's a very fine distinction. In your opinion, is Karen Reed innocent? She didn't do this? Or is it just that the prosecutors did not put on enough evidence to convict? Okay,
so here's the thing. First of all, not the jury's job, right? So I hate this question. I think it may be interesting, but it does nothing to further the understanding of what the jury's job is. It's not to determine if she's innocent or guilty, right? It's not innocence. It's based on reasonable doubt. And yes, that can lead to a not guilty or guilty charge. But you know, don't put that shit on the jury. Don't misinform people. But I mean, it is the Today Show, right?
Karen Reed is innocent, and
Okay.
she didn't do this crime.
Right.
No one could prove that she did this crime. So
Right.
I looked at her from day one as an innocent woman
Correct.
that needed to be proven guilty, and I don't think any of that.
Again, that is exactly how this is supposed to go. You're supposed to go into it, right? Innocent until proven guilty is actually a thing. And these jurors coming out and speaking are proving that that can be done. And that the thing that you see with the backlash from all these fucking idiots and internet lawyers and all this bullshit from the whatever, the backlash is because it wasn't the outcome they wanted. They don't give a shit about due process of law. Neither does the Supreme Court. But I can't get into that right now because wow. But the thing is that, man, they love juries when they convict a man in Delphi on an egregious a fundamental violation of a man's rights. They're happy as clams when that comes out. Everything's great. Jury is sacred. In this case, nah, didn't get the answers we wanted. Cannot keep that sweet gravy train coming in, right? So we can't keep bitching about this because it's over. And these folks are speaking truth to power. They are, because this is the way it's supposed to be done.
That was shown in this process.
Sir, to that point, if she didn't do it, who did?
Well, okay. No. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Maybe I should have watched this first, because this, who gives a shit? Not his job. I'm sorry. Not his job, sir. Woo. Okay.
That's not my job.
Yes.
I mean,
Yay.
Something did happen to Mr. O'Keefe.
Not my job. Boom. Thank you. God damn it. I love it. Not my job. Not my job.
And it's foul play or whatever you want to say, but there was no evidence to even multiple witnesses and testimony by his autopsy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was still, no one said to solid evidence that there was a collision or he got hit by a car.
So you don't think she actually hit him
everybody.
You don't think she hit him with the car at all?
No, go ahead.
You don't think she hit him with the car at all?
No, I don't. Not with the evidence that was put in front of me and what we heard over everything. No, I don't.
Were you aware of just how high?
Oh my God. Okay. Who cared? I mean, what's this quizzical look here? Is he wondering how people could not believe Blue Man Group? I mean, okay.
Profile this case was, there were throngs of people outside in front of the courthouse. I know the jury officers, kept you away from that, but there was a big scream at the end.
Okay,
when the verdict was read that was audible in the courtroom. How much did you know about that, and how much, if anything, did that have to do with your process, your deliberations?
I was just going to go with whatever evidence showed us. It was finding her guilty or finding her not guilty. And we were just going to go with the evidence. And at the end of the day, when I came in on Monday, I established everyone. I just want everyone to feel like they're heard 100%. Their thoughts, their process is being heard also in that process. And everyone felt at the end of the deliberations that everyone felt good about the decision that we all collectively came together with. So
In the end, there is still a mother who lost her son.
Yeah.
Officer
Yes.
O'Keefe.
Of course.
What do you think justice would look like for
God, you know what? What? I'm going to go ahead and predict what the foreman is going to say. He's going to say something like, the police need to do their fucking job. I don't know. Let's see.
the O'Keefe family?
Someone looking into it further, but looking into it further with the evidence that you already have, and then you finally find the possible person, there's going to be the same complications of all this other stipulations of evidence and everything else to go along with it. So it's just hard. And to put a mother through that, and a father and a brother and a whole family through that again it's a lot. Even me being there for 8 weeks and 9, and just sitting and watching the videos and seeing the tape and everything, it's a lot to see your loved one go through that. So
That's a lot for the jurors as well. It's a community service that
Yes.
people as citizens are asked to do. And as a foreman in particular, no one gives you a manual and tells you how to deliberate. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, Mr. Foreman. We appreciate it.
Okay, so right. Not his job. I think that was a great interview. I mean, aside from the interviewers, I mean, to be fair, I would have asked him, well, what did you have for lunch? Like, seriously, that would have been, I would have said, what were they serving you? Did you have Taco Tuesday? Listen. But I think that the questions that they're asking are not appropriate for the jury. The questions they're asking should be addressed to DA Morrissey and Hank Brennan. And so that's, and that's where, news, and again, I don't consider this journalism. This is not journalism. This is infotainment, really. It has its place, but whatever. It's infotainment. Turning it into journalism and asking those questions, which are not, what do you think justice looks like, or the actual innocence issues, whatever that is, those should be directed to the people that actually have the power to do something about it, not the fucking jurors. Not the fucking jurors. Not their job. Start asking Morrissey some hard questions. Why not? Right? What's to be lost? Absolutely nothing. Juror 11, she's great. Also, whole hell of a lot of racism going on. I can't imagine this fellow is going to get a lot of love from some dirtbags that we know on the YouTubes and the X's and whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some shitty things being said. But the fact of the matter is that when you hear people coming out, and whoever this guy is, actually, let me bring this up for a second, because I'm like, who is this guy? It's amazing the shit you find out when you start poking around the bowels of the internet. This guy, who the hell's this guy? This guy spent yesterday kicking himself in the fucking crotch on X, and I was here for it. Who is he? I mean, he was like, you know, those cartoons where whoever, Daffy Duck, I don't know, but not Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny never does anything wrong. Whoever walks back and forth on on rakes and they just keep hitting themselves in the fucking face, right? So this I find very interesting because he's very clearly targeting and obsessed with Juror 11, right? Very obsessed with her being from Brazil. Is she really a lawyer? Look into her family. What? Anyway, but this one I thought was an interesting own goal. So here's his inception of ball kicking, self ball kicking. He retweets a tweet. Why are some people so nervous and upset if police speak with Juror 11? Because it's America, bitch. Number one, because it's fucking America, and the sanctity of the jury is paramount. And if Luke is still in the chat, he, I'm sure, knows the reference to Bushell's case. It's an old ass case from English common law. It did a lot of things, but it also established the provenance and the sanctity of a jury's ruling, right? So that's one thing. Yes, correct. Right, Bushell's case. You know what I'm talking about, when they didn't get the jury, when they didn't get the answer they wanted and threw them back in the clink. Anyway, it's one of my faves, but I digress. So here's this guy. Why are people so nervous if police speak with jurors, right? Right, exactly. I think you mean... Anyway, but so when he's not is this guy a lawyer or is he just a dumbass? I mean, both can be true. So here he isolates. I mean, there's so much wrong with this tweet, right? Why are some people so nervous and upset if police speak with Juror 11? Because police don't interrogate jurors. I mean, is he suggesting that we defy Judge Bev and the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Council order that you can't even ask if a juror came to a verdict or not in the first trial? So what this person is lobbying for is violating what the Supreme Judicial Council found on steroids. He's arguing it, right? He's also targeting one juror. Now, at this point, several jurors had spoken out. They hadn't given their full names, whatever. But I think there was a dude that spoke out first. Then there was an alternate, and then there was Miss Paula. So he was targeting her because Brazilian, right? Brazilian woman who has a law degree from Brazil. Here's a hot take for everybody. Just because you're a lawyer in Brazil or wherever, you can't practice in the United States. You know, you have to take a conversion course and usually get your LLM in order to even sit the bar. So immaterial, right? But to be clear, he says, I was referring to several individual jurors, not Juror 11, who went ballistic at the mere mention of police speaking with her. If there's nothing amiss and a verdict cannot be overturned, Why are certain people so concerned at the thought of police speaking with her? Not really, though. Trust me, I've checked. If that's a new thing, I think I knew about California. I didn't think. Yes, it will be a big win for us if we make it to year 2 and 3. But yeah, and the fact that this guy was in the press pool is kind of like having a murder sheet in the press pool. I said it. I don't care. They're terrible, right? But this is so kicking himself in the nuts, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. So how the own goal happened here is that he started getting shit, rightfully so, for harassing Paula, the juror. I keep using her first name like I know her. Juror 11. Right? So instead, he's like, no. I wasn't trying to intimidate just one juror. I was suggesting that goose-stepping, jackbooted police intimidate the whole jury. I don't know. I mean, sir, the reason that we're concerned is because America's hanging on by a thread here to the theoretical rule of law. And what you're doing is actively pushing for a police state. Look, I know that you're a mediocre white man, John, whoever you are, and you get a pass on a lot of shit. But I'm going to ask you to just, what are you going to do after this trial, sir? Who is he? God almighty. It's like weird. He's a fucking stone cold weirdo. Anyway, so I think that the reason that people are so galactically cheesed off at this jury is because, they are saying the right things, and the right things in this case is the legally right thing. So when you do what's right and you take your job seriously as a juror, right? And you look at the evidence that is presented to you, you have no choice but to set aside any of your personal feelings. You just do. It's hard. It's impossible. To completely do it. It's impossible, right? Oh God, hang on a second. One moment, please. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. So yeah, it bothers people that they're actually saying what it is that a jury does, and they're explaining it from personal experience, so it bothers people. And when you compare that to, and let's see here if I can bring it up, and where is it? What did I do with it? One moment, please. Oh, there it is. We're going to do a little, ooh, toot toot, come here. What are you doing? Hi. All right. Let me take this down. This guy, ooh, Ninny. Let me see if I can share this, because we're going to compare that. So I want you to keep that guy in mind, how he stated his understanding of his job, and all the jurors that have come out that really, really very clearly understood the assignment. And I want you to contrast that with, let's see. Whoop. Here we go. Should we? Why does it say hide? Okay. Boop. Here we are. Here we go. With this juror. Oh, yeah. Ronnie too. What? Okay.
Boosting your own health makes
No.
000. The only way to get to
Put it best when you guys were talking about it. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. What did you think? And then there was a carrot on the ground, that whole thing.
Oh yeah, it took me a really long time to get it, to be honest.
I must be, I've been
Hold on.
earlier from when I saw it, but I saw the paper to show up maybe Thursday or Friday and to come in on Monday. So I was like, oh my gosh. And then once I saw that, I just for some reason knew I was going to get picked. I can't explain it. I just knew. And when I found out of the sequester, I actually had a family member tell me because they sent us something not to, watch media or anything like that. So
This woman watched media. I'm straight convinced. Straight convinced. And we know which media she consumed.
I wasn't watching the news or anything. I guess it came out that we're going to be sequestered. And I was like, what does that entail? So I Google it and it says, yeah, you get pretty much.
How long to sequester? Am I making fun of this juror? Yes. Because have you listened to this? She talks about Fran.
It's off when you get chosen at jury selection. So I thought going in that they're just gonna, and they're like, well, and you'll be able to, they'll take you home and they'll give you a little bit to pack your things or whatever. So I can't just take an hour to pack. It takes me a long time and I have a million bags.
I mean, she's talking about like she's going on a cruise. Like one of those cruises where everybody gets turbo shits from the worst goddamn buffet. Right? She's loving it. Now, I'm the first to say that Murder Sheet are terrible at their jobs. Just asking stupid questions. But, lady, I can't just take an hour to pack. Versus, we had to look at the evidence, and I walked into that room assuming that she was innocent. Not my job to figure out who did it. Not my job.
So I was like, I'm packing now. So I packed everything I thought. There would be times where, there were a couple of times we both looked at each other and he smiled. And it was, is this really hard. He is like, I noticed from like palms up, like kind of close to his chest and like as if you're like have a small, like you're cupping your hands, like if you have water in it or something. He would like do that all the time. I wish I could remember more. Those little things like that, like, are things I was like, I won't forget.
Did you notice any of that from Richard Allen himself as he was sort of in the courtroom?
So the eyes kind of, that's something I noticed from even like jury selection. I'm like, wow, his eyes are very, I don't even know what word to use. Different, I guess, surprising. But that to me.
What? What? Right? Look, these people. Anyway, the problem here, so whatever. I'm not playing any more of this, but you see what I'm getting at. there is a reason why Karen Reed jurors feel comfortable coming out and talking. It's because they did their jobs appropriately. There's a reason why one person one juror, and we just have to, I think she's the juror, right? Because I think everybody's verified that, because we cannot trust murder sheets math on shit. But, the difference, the stark difference so far is that why on earth hasn't anybody else from the Richard Allen jury come forward? Why is it just this one person to this one podcast who was fangirling over Nick McClellan, yikes, and calling the judge Fran? What the fuck? You want to talk about jury rooms, right? Well, okay, can't get into all of that. But the reason that people are so pissed off at the Karen Reed jury is because they did their fucking job correctly. So let's see what else we got going on. Boop, boop, boop. I was going to bring up, oh, you know what? Let's just straight, I'm not going to, okay. Let's see what else is going on here. I want to talk about Luigi for a minute, because I think that in the way that, this is one thing that, All Eyes brought up in a tweet the other day. And it's something that I've talked about with other folks over the course of being keyed into the Richard Allen trial, is that if the hard truth is that, and I saw this last night on Lawyer and also on Runkle's chat with Mr. Alessi and Mr. Yannetti, but they all say, they get the same question: how can you defend X, Y, and Z people? How can you defend people that are, and Mr. Yannetti even said it, that are basically scumbags in people's eyes. How can you do that? Well, because that's their job. They are our last blast against the government. So it's probably, I'm going to use some language. It's not really, I don't know how to say this. The Richard Allen case is the case of two murdered girls, right? That's terrifying. It's horrifying. It's children now. Yes, they were, teenagers, early teens, but it's still the specter of two girls being murdered in a horrific way. Versus, and this comes back to Luigi too, is that in Karen Reed, attractive woman who had all the resources and very educated, and then didn't have the resources and then managed to fundraise. The Karen Reed case drew such a following, in part because it's easier to get behind a defendant when there's, and the fuckery is clear in both cases, right? Right. So it's hard to come out and say, I believe Richard Allen got screwed by the Indiana legal system, ISP, Nick McClellan, Judge Gohl, and really put a stake in the ground for advocating for justice to actually be done there, and that verdict to be overturned because it was obtained, unconstitutionally. It's not quite as sexy, right, as covering, this kind of flashy Hollywood lawyer and, lovely defendant, versus a child killer. And so that's hard, right? It's hard, but it's what but it's also but you have to set that aside. And I think that is something that people struggle with. And I actually I get it. I do get that struggle. And I think that I recognize that people can be, and this is another thing, people can hold two things at the same time. And Michael Osberg hates it when I say this, but it's true. I can revile the act of what happened in Delphi, the murder of the two girls, and be an advocate for Mr. Allen being wrongfully imprisoned. Because I do believe he was. I don't know if he's guilty or innocent. Not my job. Not my job. Right? So I think that when people talk about narrative shifting and all of this other stuff, when it comes to the Richard Allen case, I think that for me, I have to keep it very, very simple. And the very, very simple thing that I focus on is the process. And the process is that he was denied access to counsel, right to be present at a critical stage. And I fundamentally believe that. That to me is not justice. That is not justice. And if we're going to, as a society, laud the appropriate administration of justice in the Karen Read case, yet because of the horrific nature of the crime in Delphi, decide that we're not going to talk about it because it's uncomfortable to talk about support for a child. Look, the state has to prove their case. And to me, Nick McClellan did not play by the rules, and there are rules. And so I think it has to be as simple as that. To me. So, I think that there's a lot of fear around talking about, and I do get that, truly. I do. I understand that. And I think that is something that can be talked through. There's a lot of things that I don't think that I'm not capable of talking through about Richard Allen, because most of the people, some of the people, hi, it's my cat. There she is. Woo! Toot toot. Hi. I'm looking for places that there's crossover to talk to people about what happened with Indiana State Police and with the Richard Allen case and everything that went along with it. And getting people over the hump of, but it was two girls, right? Because that is horrific. But we don't have to get to that point yet in our heads when we talk about it. And I know that there, as shitty as it is, and as awful and counterintuitive as it feels, the trial truly is for the defendant. And the idea that somehow there's, even if Karen, so let's think of this. Even if Karen Reed was convicted, right? John's not coming back. Now that Richard Allen's been convicted, that doesn't do anything to bring back Abby and Libby. So I think we need to shift that notion of justice and what justice actually is. Because how do you get justice, you know, for something you can never, ever get back? And that is not to say that people should not be arrested and tried and in a court of law and found guilty if they, in fact, committed a crime. But the system must work for the defendant, right? Right. Yep. Oops. Right. 2 deceased teenagers doesn't make Rick guilty. No. Nor does it nor does it need to make us immune to, or it doesn't make me immune to the catastrophe, the gutting loss. You know, I've never had to experience it, but let's see. Right. Yeah. Yep. Sure didn't. I mean, Supreme Court, right? Rwanda in the UK, right? It is such a fundamental thing that is so tenuous right now. And I don't know if people get it. Once it's gone, it's gone. Y'alls. So when we shift to talk about, so I have been, I've been trying to sort of shift my focus away from whatever the fuck is going on this weird ass platform. And I'm trying, somebody asked me today about, I want to share this with you guys, about a woman, Maggie Zingman, who's the mother of Britney Phillips, who I have known for several years now. Britney was murdered in Tulsa. And I could use some crank help on this, because this is a solvable murder with shitloads of corruption within the Tulsa Police Department. There's no reason that this should be a cold case. So I want to bring up this, which is weird. Hang on a second. It's hotter than shit here, y'all. Let's see. Where is it? I am going to play some of this that somehow. So sorry, let me just get this pulled up. Okay. So let's talk about Maggie. And then we'll talk about Luigi real quick, if anybody's interested. Are people interested in Luigi still? Because Luigi, I'm just going to give you a preview, has a hell of a dashboard, y'all. Hell of a dashboard. Okay, so now keep your eyes peeled, because somebody makes a cameo. Woo! What? This washed up old bag journalist.
She was always a little bit older than her age.
Off to college, her whole life ahead of her.
She grew up to be this beautiful young lady with long blonde curls.
So that's Maggie Zingman. And as a side note, her father, Edward, is it Edward? Mr. Is it Edward or Edmund Zingman argued before the Supreme Court one of the first cases about press freedom and the right to protect sources. I didn't know that, but makes me love her even more. But anyway, let's see here.
Then Britney Phillips was brutally murdered in her Tulsa apartment. Who killed her and why?
It could have been somebody she let in. It could have been somebody that, what? Who's that? Who's that grief-ridden old bag who's choosing to spend her retirement drunk? Come here. If you know, you know. It's me.
She actually knew.
A mystery of more than 20 years that's still revealing new clues. A murder that has inspired a cross-country quest to catch a killer.
I felt helpless. I felt like I've got to be able to do more.
Britney Phillips was a true Renaissance woman, according to her mother, Dr. Maggie Zingman.
She was into ballet and gymnastics. She loved to sing. She actually acted with me in a couple of shows. Adorable
So
curls.
At 18, Britney was excited to move to Tulsa, just an hour away from her mom, to start classes at Tulsa Community College and to get an apartment on her own.
It was 8 quad with 4 apartments. We thought it was safe.
It was a September day when Maggie would talk to her daughter for the last time. Britney was calling from an urgent care with sinus problems.
She called me at about 8:30 or 9 from that urgent care, and she was very upset because that was Britney. If things didn't go her way, she got very upset. And she'd been there 2 hours, and they kept delaying her. And she said, okay, I'm going to drop my friend home, and then I'm going to go home and go to bed because I have early classes. And that was the last time I talked to her.
3 days later, after Britney wasn't seen in class, police performed a welfare check and made a horrible discovery. Britney appeared to have been strangled.
She was on the floor just next to the bed. She was wearing a shirt and her feet were facing the head of the bed and her head was facing the foot of the bed.
At the scene, investigators have little to go on until they discover some DNA.
Semen was found on the sheets. The blood was found in the sink and they were matching. So this was the assumption that was made that this is the guy that we need to be looking for.
But it would later be determined the DNA belonged to Britney's best friend's boyfriend, who had spent time at the apartment. He was ruled out after providing a solid alibi.
It turned out that that person was not the person.
But the heartbroken Maggie wasn't about to give up. She had a hunch the suspected killer could be a drifter. So years later, she started traveling across the country in her bright purple and pink Kia, adorned with pictures of Britney and a number to call for tips.
Thousands of miles.
I came up with Caravan to catch a killer, and now we have 5 cars. I have traveled to 48 states and covered about 300,000 miles.
Oh, 300,000.
23 tours. Part of the way you survive this is you feel like you're doing something to help, whether it's to help others or to help your own case.
And the latest developments bring even more mystery. A greeting card believed to be mailed by Britney,
Not believed.
her grandfather, had a post office stamp dated September 29, 2 days after police believe Britney died.
It is a new piece of evidence, a metered stamp dated what would have been the day after Britney supposedly died, and we're talking like a full roughly 24 hours. So that alters the timeline. And that's a big deal.
And another break. DNA found under Britney's fingernails has been sent to a lab for more advanced level testing, now available to investigators. Results are pending.
I thought maybe you would want to send those off sooner rather than later. But I do understand that, you know, they had semen and blood, so they thought that was going to be the thing.
As Maggie waits, the caravan will continue searching for answers as she is forever haunted by the horrors of what happened to her only daughter.
Brady, whenever she would be in trouble. Sorry.
Oh.
Whenever she was hurt, whenever she was in trouble, even when she was 18, she started going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." My worst fears were that that's what she was doing when she was being murdered. I really hope she did die instantly, because I know she would have been screaming for me.
God.
If you have any information about the murder of Britney Phillips, the Tulsa police have set up a hotline, 918-596-COPS. You can also contact our tip line at 8.
So Maggie is now a friend of mine, and I let's see. It's solvable. And, you know, what I didn't get to say in that interview was that I think that Tulsa police are obstructing cold case teams that have offered to come in and help. And part of it has to do with I mean, it's so crazy. It doesn't make any sense when I talk about it, but there was a medical examiner who performed, and I think I've mentioned this before, a medical examiner who performed Britney's autopsy, who had been fired from his job in Arizona for sexually harassing women in the morgue and for driving his motorcycle onto the morgue scale. And also, after he got hired, snapped up by Tulsa, he would bring rando ladies in to observe autopsies because, right? Right? And there is so much more there. And when I found that out and talked to Maggie about it, about this medical examiner, I was like shaking. I was so mad. It's like, what? This disgusting piece of shit had his hands on her. So there's a lot wrong with this case. And there's, let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. Let's see. Okay. So this is what I put together. It's a website. And I could really use some people to help me figure this out. So what I've done is, and I need to update this because I have talked, I have talked to and recorded some stuff with Maggie more recently. But, you know, I put together a case timeline. And this is not the best venue for it, this Substack shit. I don't know how to run this, but this gives you the basics. So it goes through the basics of the timeline. I have included some maps. to the area just for people to understand what we're dealing with. There's just 3 episodes. These are not really podcasts per se. They are, let's see, they're more like just reading some of the stuff in the Substack out loud. So, but timeline, you know, as our Lord and Savior, Her Royal Highness Queen Crank says, attack the timeline, right? Timeline. The timeline made a huge shift, and the police have not shifted with it. And that to me is bullshit. And that to me is locking into one theory, which is bullshit. I mean, when we talk about cases that don't have enough evidence, or concerns with cases that don't have enough meat on the bones, that's not what this is. And that is part of what makes this so goddamn frustrating. I totally understand that there are missing and murdered women, missing and murdered people out there. But, you know, Maggie, through her cross country, you know, she said 300,000 miles. I didn't realize it was that much, but she's just met more families like her. More families like her. And Maggie also is oh God, let me get it right. She's Dr. Maggie Zingman. So she's a clinical psychologist who worked in forensic psychology, but works mostly with people and veterans who have PTSD. So she's also an amazing human being. She takes no shit, gives no fucks, and doesn't want to die. And doesn't want to die before they find Britney's killer. And I keep saying, you're not going to die before they find her. They're not going to find. You're not going to die. But so let me see. Let me see if I can do this. For fuck's sake. I don't know why it shows up like that. But anyway, I'll put the link in Yield chat. But if you, and I'm happy to do something and go through this. I don't want to do it now, but if there's anybody that's interested in helping out with this from Crank World, then I would be happy to go through all of these with you. But a good place to start, I think, is here, where I just sort of meticulously go through the timeline. So one of the most critical parts of any story is timeline. As an investigative reporter, I use timelines for all of my stories. It tells me who, what, when. You're going to have to listen to me on 1.5 because I'm a slow talker sometimes. But anyway, I would start there and get your feet into that a little bit, because this needs some new life very badly. And the fact that we have new information, can we watch this? What is this? Anyway, I wanted to just do sort of an update. This is the new Maggie, her mom. this is Maggie goes to Crime Con. She hates it, but she goes because, of course, she goes because she has to. So this is, I think, 2 years ago at Crime Con, right after we found the envelope. And to be clear, this envelope did not have just a stamp that was. We went through all the possibilities. It was found, you know, in a box by her father 18 years after she was murdered. He sent it to Maggie. Maggie and I talked. She sent me a photo. And, you know, she's got a great group of people around her that are just doing sleuthing on the side. But it was a metered piece of mail, and people know what I'm talking about, where you have to walk in, you go, you purchase it. It either gets spat out and stuck on, or you turn it over. And typically what happens, at least in the case of this particular envelope, talking to a postmaster in Tulsa, said that it would have to have come from a kiosk and been handed over. So that changes the timeline, because as she said, that is 24 hours where the police need to go back and take a look at it, because there was no time of death. The time of death on her autopsy, and her autopsy was shit. It didn't list anything. And at some point we can go through this, because I have all of it, and Maggie is into it, you know, and she wants to do some conversations and stuff with people to drive some more interest in this. And I think the cranks are up for it. But it's not getting the kind of attention that it's supposed to be getting. They got this new piece of evidence, and it is evidence. It is indisputable evidence that the timeline has altered. They haven't even called Britney's father to find out, hey, where did you find this? Where'd you find this letter? They have not called Britney's brother. They have not called the multitude of friends who Britney was in classes with. The Tulsa Police Department hasn't done shit. And I've got a horrible feeling it's because this medical examiner is a stone cold creep. And that is going to throw all of the cases he touched into jeopardy, much like the cancer that is Michael Proctor. But guess what, friends? All of this needs to have the house cleaned, right? So is at CrimeCon this weekend, and it's also coming up on the 19th anniversary of Britney's murder. Few things. There's. I'm just going to let this play for a minute. New evidence, new timeline, all of those things I talked about in our audio version of this. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, because, you know, there is hopefully going to be a cold case group looking at this. At least we're hopeful for that. I wanted to bring up some stuff about the autopsy. First of all, this. What I have here on the screen is just a clip from back in February when Maggie got the new piece of evidence that altered the timeline and the timeline of Britney's murder. And I can tell you from my experience at this point with the new and its new evidence, there's been no movement by the Tulsa Police Department on this. They say that they have sent away the envelope for testing, which is like great, but they haven't called anybody associated with the finding of the new, the finding of the envelope. They haven't called Britney's father, who is the one that found it, 18 years later, and sent it in. So they haven't spoken with him, Maggie's ex. They haven't spoken with two friends. I think it's two friends that called the police department saying, after seeing the news story about the envelope, I could have sworn I saw Britney in class, that Tuesday or whatever it was, that suggested that, or actually not suggested, that added a little bit more weight to the need to shift the timeline. So they haven't called anybody who has called in tips since then. And these are Britney's friends. These are friends who have either went to college with her or just were friends with her. And so there's been no follow-up whatsoever. So you have 19 years. One DNA profile that led to nothing, with no explanation, really, not a good enough explanation. And again, go back and listen to the first 3 audio explanations on this. No good explanation for why the first DNA sample was rejected or was supposedly not. Let's see. Oh, is Maggie coming? Hang on one second. Hello? Hello? Hi. Hello. I just wanted to say hello. Can you hear me, Maggie? Oh, and there she left. Anyway, so maybe she'll call back. She is literally at CrimeCon. So what the hell was I saying? The first DNA was ruled out. The person who matched it supposedly had a reason to actually be there. But now this last February, hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
What were you talking about your hair the other day?
Oh my God.
What's different?
No, well, it was like, it was first thing in the morning and my hair was like, like this. So you went back in. I was just doing, this is just recording, it's not live. So I was just kind of walking through everything since February with the new evidence and the fact that the police haven't called your ex or anything like that.
Right.
And I just thought I would, and I did try to call TPD. I talked to 2 different people, just saying that, that I'm working on a story about the 19th anniversary, etc. So we'll see if they get back to me. And I do, like I said, New York is a one-party state, so
I still would email both the chief and deputy chief because they are the ones that specifically said, "Oh, we want to solve this case, so we really want you to do the story on her anniversary."
Yeah, well, and so you weren't able to do. So Channel 2 in Tulsa wants to do an update story or something with you, but you weren't able to connect with them today? Is that right?
I mean, we tried, but Paul Jensen was presenting earlier, and I went in and saw that a little bit. Chris Hansen's here presenting. It's such a popularity thing. Everybody's wanting to take pictures,
I know.
And stuff.
It makes me feel a little weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but, like I said, the exposure and Nancy Grace is here. She probably doesn't even remember me at all.
Well, she was real sweet on the phone that one time.
Yeah, well, but all her people, her executive producer knows me, and her executive producer said hi, and Lee Egan knows me. I mean, they were all upset about the parking too, and stuff. So I wish I could turn the camera around. You could see how wild and crazy this is. But I don't know how to do that on this thing.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
But what is this called? StreamYard. So I'm wondering why StreamYard is working very good, but Zoom isn't.
Oh, I don't know. It might be, you know what? I'm not exactly sure. I have no idea. But StreamYard, it's been working well for me. Well, are they trying to interview you over Zoom?
I was trying to see if I could.
Well, I mean, you could just turn the camera around if you want to show me.
Turn the film around, but I can't. I mean, it's a low crowd now, but.
Well, so what were the podcast that you spoke to? that were interested. The first one you mentioned was a man and a woman team. Was it a cold case podcast? All right. So maybe that's not going to work. Okay.
Is the investigators.
Okay.
And it is, the names are
I can find them.
Todd McComas and Jessica Null and stuff. I mean, they just took me in. They were so sweet.
Oh.
Stuff. And then True Crime Garage, and then let's see what the other one is. The Date with Dateline. Now, there's also a group that's from Utah that does cold cases. Are you aware of that?
Is it Hidden True Crime?
Yeah, it's, hold on. I'm going to go to the booth. I'm just walking by Othram, but I think they're too famous to be here. But it,
all right, so you guys get it. Actually, somebody is buzzing at my door. So yeah, so this really well-planned streaming event is now going to be coming to a close. So yeah, so I'm going to hopefully you know where to find me, but I am going to run because like I said, it might just be like goddamn Amazon driver, but yeah, so please look into that. I know we didn't get to Luigi, but you know, we'll get there someday, maybe. But I will see you next Tuesday. Wink. Because I hate all of you.